And I am Allison Carey, and I'm the dramaturg of Twelfth Night.
So Allison, since you have the microphone in your hand, I'm actually going to start with you to talk about Twelfth Night, a play which, for those of you who are steeped in OSF lore, know that Twelfth Night is very special in the history of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, as this was one of the two plays that began an 81-year-long legacy. Twelfth Night is also very important to Christopher Liam Moore, who's a director for whom this is the fourth time either acting in or directing Twelfth Night. This is a play that he loves very, very much. So tell us a little bit about Twelfth Night. What is it about this comedy of Shakespeare's that makes it one of the most beloved titles?
You know, when Bill Rausch and Chris Moore and I were all in college together, and we used to have this argument about which was the more perfect play, Midsummer Night's Dream or Twelfth Night. And when we were younger, we were all like, Midsummer, yeah. And then as we got older, we became more and more convinced that Twelfth Night was actually the most perfect play. And I think that is one of the reasons we, as a group of artists and friends, have continued to come back to it, and certainly for Chris. And one of the things that I'll, sort of in terms of what's important about this play, to answer your question, Lydia, is I think it's interesting. Twelfth Night is sometimes you'd think with the world's most perfect play, or one of the two most perfect play, next to River Bride. One of the three most perfect play, next to Yeoman of the Guard. One of the four most perfect plays, next to Great Expectations. Is that sometimes it's very hard to do well. And part of that is the legacy of this play that is done, that is so revered. But also sometimes I think that people forget that the play starts in a place of great sorrow, right? You think comedy, you think funny drunk people, you think, disguise and uncovering. But the play starts with Olivia, who has lost her brother and is refusing to interact with the world at all, and the two twins, Viola and Sebastian, who believe the other one to be dead. And if you don't, when Chris approached this play, he very much wanted to start from that sad place. Because when you start sad and then you get happy, it's an arc. And we love arcs in drama. And so I think that's what's, you'll notice at the play that there is a great somberness just at the beginning. It doesn't stay along because Shakespeare, likes to keep things moving. But that is one of the great, I think that's why this particular production is so satisfying, and I think it's one of the reasons the play continues to be so beloved, because it is about moving through grief. And that's something that all humans have to do. The production specifically is set in 1930s Hollywood, and there's actually the best reason in the world that it is. It's one of those things, we do 12th Night every 6 or 7 or 8 years. Well, this was 6 since we did the last one in 2010. And it's always that, that you have to follow this other production. But there's also, we get to do it again. Like, we get to experiment with a new way of looking at it, which is so exciting. So Gina Daniels, who's an actress, I'm sure many of you have seen her on stage, she was at a costume exhibit in a museum about 3 years ago and texted Chris Moore, if you ever direct Twelfth Night, you should set it in 1930s Hollywood because the clothes are so fabulous. And then, like a few months later, or maybe a year later, Bill asked Chris to direct Twelfth Night, and instead of having that sort of horrified, oh dear God, what am I going to do? He was like, I know exactly what I'm going to do. And happily, he cast Gina as Olivia so that they could consult constantly about her clothing, which they do. And that woman can wear a dress like nobody's business, and the great costume designer. And so it's, the play itself it's a very elegant take on it out, along with this sort of baseline sorrow. A couple of other things to know about it is there's, following on this sort of Hollywood feeling, there is a piano on stage, nice grand piano, and a composer, David Reifel, who is formerly with Cornerstone Theater Company, a theater that Bill and Chris and I all worked with. And the music is inspired by Jerome Kern, so it's very beautiful, and it's very full of longing, and he's a fantastic composer. There is also a wee bit of the dance, and I will leave it to you. How many of you, did any of you see it already? Oh yeah, dancing? Yeah. And so it's, I think it's very emotionally satisfying. The great thing about having the piano on stage is it means you can underscore moments of heightened emotion for the characters, which really, sort of helps everyone enter the moments together, kind of equalizing the emotional impact between what's happening on stage and what's happening in the audience. And another thing I should probably mention is that one of the reasons Chris Moore is so in love with this play is sort of back in the day when we were in our 20s, we did a production of Twelfth Night in Los Angeles with a former theater company, which Bill directed, and which I adapted to be about on naval base, and it was about Don't Ask, Don't Tell. But Chris Moore played both Viola and Sebastian. And it worked so well that when it came around to doing the show again, he wanted to do that again, but instead of sort of exploring in sort of the traditional Shakespeare way of a man pretending to be a woman, pretending to be a man, sort of what would happen if it was a woman pretending to be a man. Well, you know what I'm saying. I said that right? A real woman, anyway, but you'll see it in the play. And it's really, really exciting in sort of the way that, it's not that the gender identity is really slammed on in any particular way, but it's this light thing that is so in the play, right? So that it's because when you have twins, you're always playing with what happens when you end up with the wrong partner. It's really, it's very delightful and very funny and very freeing. And I do also want to sort of mention, and I hope I haven't gone over time, but in terms of one of the great things I think about having Chris direct this play this year is that with the passing of Catherine Coulson last year, I think there is still so much sorrow in our community and in the company, and there's a picture of Catherine on his music stand as he directs, which is very lovely, and I think that if she were here, she would be in the cast, and she is here, so she's with us on the stage the whole time, and that moving through grief, I think, has been a very important part of the creative process for the whole company, which has been a great honor to be in the room, to be a part of that, community grabbing hands and stepping forward. So that's kind of what I got.
Thank you, Allison.